Hey everyone, how you doing? This is Amon Green, Green Bay Packers all-time leading rusher, and you're watching Packers Total Access Live, your daily source for Packer content. Go Pack, go!
What's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on Packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. Joined alongside Tim in Green Bay. We got Jacob in Wisconsin. Here to talk a little rookie mini camp as there's some footballs flying around over there at the Don Hudson Center today. And it was cool seeing all the rooks in their jerseys and everything and getting out there, doing a little stretching and working with the coaches, position coaches as well. But how are we doing today, guys?
Doing good. Tim's on mute.
Ready to go, except for being on mute.
Take that moment forever, Tim, just to be able to go. Tim's on mute.
Tim's on mute. Yeah.
I don't know about you, Tim.
Shut up, Tim. Let me talk more.
We've got like a 65 and sunny day on the docket here in Wisconsin, so it's going to be really nice the next few days too.
Did you say 65?
65%.
65%. That's what. Hey, you walked right into that one, Jacob. That's on you, bro. Sorry about it.
I stepped on that rake.
Yeah, so some of you were wondering what in the world are y'all doing going live this early. We're going to get a little afternoon show in. We were just going to skip tonight altogether, so we decided, hey, let's bump it up and get you guys some content out. We were going to hit some Savion Williams chalk talk, but we decided to switch gears. Let's cover the rookie OTA, minicamp, whatever it is you want to call it. We'll talk about who attended it. We'll show you a little bit of video footage from it as well. And then I figured it'd be a good time. I know, Jacob, you brung this up at time or 12. Let's talk about the depth chart a little bit, right? Kind of see how it's projecting, that type of thing. So with that being said, let's jump into it, man. Wes Hawkowitz had put this out, and if you guys can't read it, it's okay. I'll try to read it for you. I'm sure I'll butcher half of these names. But this was the Green Bay Packers roster for the 2025 rookie mini camp. They had Gavin Stewart, kicker from Georgia Southern, Taylor Elgersma, quarterback from Wilfrid Laurier.
Here's the guy
in Canada. You got Brendan Hall, punter from Montana State. Guys, this Brendan Hall cat, 6'9", they said.
Wow.
And if I heard Ryan correctly, in high school he was hitting 75-yard field goals. So this guy seems like he might be primed to take the other lad's spot on the practice squad this year if they really like what they see out of this rookie mini camp. Let's see who else we got here. We got Jack Studer, wide receiver from Wisconsin La Crosse. Kind of cool to see a local guy there in-house. Matthew Golden, who's going to be wearing number 22. That's your first-round wide receiver out of Texas. Micah Robinson, number 26, cornerback out of Tulane. Kalen King. That's really strange, right? Kalen King from Penn State was at the rookie minicamp. Do you think that they maybe had the guys that ended up on the practice squad come in too?
I'm wondering if they do that to fill out the practices, right? Mm-hmm. Or the workouts. It's probably like practice squad guys and then the rooks.
It makes sense, right? I mean, get Kalen in there and get him some more reps, get him back in there and messing around a little bit, right? I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I see they also have Deslin Alexander. He was on the squad last year, so
they must have opened it up to some of the guys from last year. That's kind of cool. Let's see. You got Xander Mueller out of Northwestern. He's a linebacker. Jalen White, running back out of Georgia Southern. Kazir Brown, safety out of Florida Atlantic. Kamal Haddon, there you go, cornerback out of Tennessee. Obviously, we signed him off the scrap heap last year. Jonathan Baldwin is listed as a cornerback out of UNLV. You guys know, I want to say we were kind of high on him. Let me see where we had him on our big board, because I remember us talking about it a little bit. Jonathan Baldwin, because he was safety, if I remember right.
Yeah, I thought I read somewhere that the Packers gave him the most money that they gave any UDFA, which was surprising to me.
Nice.
Yeah, it makes sense. I want to say that when we looked him up, and maybe he was not on our big board. I'm not seeing it on the big board. I remember we looked him up somewhere and was like, dang, this dude looked pretty solid. So he must have graded out fairly well in terms of PFF. Nonetheless, they've got him listed as a corner as opposed to a safety. Not that it really matters when you're at rookie minicamp, but Caleb Hayes, linebacker out of BYU. Johnny Lumpkin, tight end out of Louisiana. Obviously, he was on the roster last year a little bit. Luke Gunderson, linebacker out of Northern State. Colin Oliver, defensive lineman out of Oklahoma State. So there you go. There's many people jumped into the YouTube comments from some of the stuff that we showed yesterday, the video that we had yesterday, and they were saying, Colin Oliver playing linebacker, what does this mean for Tyron Hopper? And we had mentioned, listen, he's a hybrid guy. He's either going to play edge or he's going to play stack backer. I'm leaning towards he's going to play edge, and they do have him listed as a defensive lineman. As you can see here on this list, there are no edge defenders listed. They're all listed as defensive linemen grouped in with the big boys up front. So Colin Oliver there wearing number 45 at Oklahoma State. Amar Johnson, one of the guys that I'm really excited about, the running back out of South Dakota State. You got Tyron Herring, cornerback out of Delaware. Jamon Johnson or Jamon Johnson, I've heard it said both ways, linebacker out of Kentucky. Deslin Alexander, defensive lineman out of Pittsburgh. Connor Shea, linebacker out of Wyoming. Jeremiah Martin, defensive lineman out of Washington. Van Fillinger, defensive lineman out of Utah. Gage King, long snapper out of Central Florida. Tyler Cooper, guard out of Minnesota. Really excited about him. That's a guy I think kind of under the radar a little bit. Keith Randolph, defensive lineman out of Illinois. J.J. Lip, guard out of Northern Illinois. Donovan Jennings, guard/tackle, obviously was on the practice squad last year out of South Florida. Anthony Belton, the big boy, number 71, your second-round pick out of North Carolina State, playing tackle. They've been listed as a tackle, so there you go, right? Not that they would tip their hand too much, but that's what I want to see. I don't want to see Jordan Morgan jump back to left tackle. I want to see him kind of solidify his spot at right guard. Let Anthony Belton just kind of work right in.
Bring that Escalade out of the garage, right? Let that Escalade ride.
And look, if he beats out Rasheed Walker for left tackle, so be it. I know this. If he is good enough to win that starting left tackle job over our boy Rasheed Walker, I think we got possibly one of the best swing tackles in football, because Rasheed Walker is one of the best pass blocking left tackles in the game. So now whether he could play right tackle or not, that's to be determined. Hopefully we don't even have to see that, in the making. Now, it is worth mentioning, here's Brant Banks, tackle out of Rice. John Williams, guard out of Cincinnati. That was your 7th-round pick. So they've got him listed at guard. Wasn't he a tackle, Jacob? Am I thinking right, man?
Which one, sorry?
John Williams out of Cincinnati.
I thought he played tackle in college.
Yeah. So they've got him listed as a guard. So they're tipping their hand a little bit. I like this. I like that they're trying to, just go ahead. All right, here's where we're planning on trying these guys. Doesn't mean that's where they'll end up. Right. Jaden Smith, wide receiver out of Nevada. Ali Jennings, I think is who that is. Wide receiver out of Virginia Tech. Warren Brinson, defensive tackle out of Georgia. Nazir Stackhouse, defensive lineman out of Georgia.
Let's go. There's a name.
Yeah, James Esther, defensive lineman out of Northern Illinois. And Baron Sorrell, number 99, defensive lineman out of Texas. So James Esther obviously was on the practice squad last year as well. So get your all's initial thoughts. I don't care who goes first. As Daryl pointed out, John Williams was the tackle at Cincy, so it looks like they're going to try him at guard. That's very interesting. So
I'm just reading the fine print here, like we discussed. I see this is Wes Hockowitz, right, that tweeted this out?
Correct.
Yeah, so you see 38 players, 8 draft picks, 10 UDFAs, 11 tryouts, and then 9 current guys. So the second year players are the guys that are probably filling out that room so they can do these workouts and stuff. But I don't know, really just getting to the end of that list, man, just a lot of guys to be excited about in that last little cluster here, from Anthony Belton all the way down. Nas Stackhouse is a guy that I'm looking forward to seeing at camp. Another big dog from that Georgia defense, and obviously Baron Sorrell out of Texas. So this is awesome, man. I can't believe it. We're that much closer to OTAs and training camp, and just a lot to be excited about with these guys. Just let's be honest, rookie minicamp is just kind of getting your feet under you, let the coach get that first look at you. We saw a lot of receiver drills today. Guys weren't even really catching passes or anything. They were just kind of running routes, going through the motions, and it's just fun, man. Football is back, baby, at 1265. I'm excited.
Definitely. Chad Inc. asks, is this a special episode? Chad, this is a special episode that we put together for you, man. I told the guys, listen, let's just do a special episode for Chad Inc. All right. We just had to go live a little earlier tonight because we got dinner plans. So That's all it is, man. Appreciate you swinging through, though, buddy.
I really thought Tim was going to hit "you're a very special person." I use that a lot on my staff now. When they say stupid stuff, I just look at them like, you're a super special person.
You're an amazing person. You know that, don't you?
Amazing person.
Coach B, baby. Gotta love it. Always gold when Rich Bisaccia is at a microphone, for sure.
As Holmes points out, every episode here on PTA is special. No doubt about it. So, all right. Jacob, anything you want to add to this initial list? And then we'll show a little bit of video footage and get some depth chart talk going, man.
Yeah, you kind of mentioned him just briefly. Tyler Cooper, I think, might have been the steal of the UDFAs, and he graded out quite well, did a lot of good stuff at Minnesota, had some Big Ten competition, and I'm just interested to see how Kalen King and the Micah Robinson, how that's going to shape itself up, because if either one of those guys, or if both of them, by chance, if we got a couple dogs in that cornerback rooms, you know what I mean, that all of a sudden that DB room is looking like very, very talented, when at first we thought it could be a glaring need. And then there's a few other ones that are peppered in there, you know, where you just kind of see like how they react. Like, definitely want to see Oliver and how he kind of molds his game in the NFL level, for sure. And I think, you know, we're not going to see a lot right away. Definitely, it's going to be a while till we see him in pads and all that kind of stuff, but it's just going to be fun. Like Tim said, it's always interesting to see a new crop of faces. And I would argue that this year we're more prepared than we are most years, you know, to actually get to know these guys and have already had a lot of time looking at them. So I'm excited, man.
Yeah, for sure, man. All right, so just a couple clips that were tweeted out. This was from Wes Hodquist, man. He was an MVP today, let me tell you, just putting out multiple, crops of footage here. This was Jason Vrabel working with Matthew Golden and Savion Williams. So hopefully there's no sound. There is not. So just to kind of see him out there working with, listen, they didn't do anything strenuous, but it was just cool to see them on the field today. There's, you see the double deuce. I'm all about it, man. I love that 22 on Matthew. I see people complaining about it. I just don't understand it, man. Can we not have anything nice, guys? Can we just please?
Can I just say, like, this morning when I woke up and saw this hitting the X feed, I showed the missus. I said, look at these two rookie wide receivers, and she looked at Savion Williams and said, "Is that a tight end?"
Exactly.
I said, "No, baby, that's a wide receiver." She's like,
Hey,
"Oh,
he does look big, man. That's
looks
crazy.
like a beast among men, man, for sure."
Yeah, there was one clip too where they were standing in the line stretching, and he was right next to, I think it was Barron Sorrell.
Yeah.
And it was like they look the same size. Now, obviously, Barron Sorrell got a lot more meat on the bone, but just them standing next to each other and from a distance, I was like, "Holy cow, man! He looks like a defensive lineman." That's awesome. So really, really cool, man. All right, so next shot here was actually looks like the wide receivers again, as Matt Schneidman had thrown a tweet out, and it says Matthew Golden running routes. Now, obviously, this is going to be half speed. There's going to be people, he doesn't look like it's 4.29. But we're just out there kind of getting our feet up. Okay, that's all it is. But he does look, to me, he looks thicker than I expected. You know what I mean? A little bit more broad-shouldered. And that makes me feel, you know, even better about the pick, because obviously as he's going across the middle, he's going to take some shots, and sometimes those tiny guys, and you get a little bit worried about. I'm not so worried about that with Matthew Golden, man. I'm really not.
No.
And there you see Savion lining up next. God, he's
Dang, dude.
22 does look good on Matthew Golden, though. I'm glad he went with that.
Me too, man. Me too. The golden child. All right, up next, a little bit more. This was from Rob Domofsky. I believe this was receivers as well. And again, this is just to kind of take you guys inside the practice a little bit and let you see kind of what the guys look like in their unis and all that. But you see Golden here just working off the line. And then, of course, here's the big dog, Savion. Love to see it. So, yeah. Again,
this is what we talked about, right? Nothing crazy, right? Just working on, you know, looks like getting off the snap there, maybe. Mm-hmm. Just kind of seeing him off the line, not really running a route, just getting your legs under you. Football's almost here.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was randomly thinking of something at work the other day, because I was listening to one of Ryan's podcasts, and I know Ryan is totally like, he hates having the comparison to Cordarrelle and him, because he doesn't want him to be like a gadget guy. But when I think about Matt LaFleur and just how creative he is with certain things, I just feel like he's going to have some crazy, Like in my head, I'm thinking of like weird pony package, like 22 personnel or something like that. You know what I mean? Where he could have Jacobs and Savion in the backfield and then have a couple blocky tight ends or have Tucker and some, you know what I mean? Like the stuff you could do is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. You know, the thing about Savion, many people see him as just a gadget player. And I've been pretty vocal since draft night that when you look at how they utilized him at TCU, they didn't spend a whole lot of time molding him into a pro style wide receiver. So anyone who looks at him think, oh, he's raw. Of course he's raw. You know, when they had him playing wildcat quarterback and you know, I was pleasantly surprised when I turned on the tape and seen how many times he lined up at X, how many times he lined up at Z, you know, and will go up and make contested catches. So I think there's a little more there. And obviously Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur think there's more there as well. So, you know, when you talk about how you can draw stuff up for him, Jacob, the first thing that came to mind for me was also the pony package, you know, because he's not scared to block either, right? And I think of Chris Brooks, when we put him in that pony package last year, he would kind of be the lead blocker for Josh Jacobs. But boy, all it takes is Josh Jacobs hammering a couple explosive runs in the first half of a game, and then you put Savion in that pony package with him, and they really start to key in on the misdirection aspect of that pony package and maybe leaning toward or twitching toward the direction in which Josh Jacobs goes. Next thing you know, you got Savion cutting across the green. I think that would be the role I would work him into the soonest. And what that does is it really frees up Jaden Reed to not have to do that orbit motion in the backfield and all that. So you can kind of let him and Matthew Golden lead the way as Z and that F receiver. And then you'll still have Romeo Dobbs, if he's on the roster, playing that boundary X along with Dontavion Wicks until, of course, you know, Christian Watson gets back. So I'm right there with you, Jacob. I think it'll be probably more the pony package type is what fits him the best because he's definitely comfortable running from the depth of the backfield. You know what I mean? As opposed to, I mean, he's good on end rounds too, don't get me wrong, but I think he's more comfortable kind of everything in front of him squared up on the defense.
And like you said, he's not afraid to lay a block in there, right? You know, like I look forward to that, right? Throw a block real quick and then release for that leak and, you know, get yak yards, those kind of things. I think you're right. I think, you know, coming into Green Bay, he's not going to be looked at as a gadget player. That may have been how he was used at TCU. But, you know, coming into his own here as a Packer, you know, he could probably solidify a really good role on this team. And sure, we may use him as a gadget in those situations. You know, we know Matt likes to dial up the razzle dazzle once in a while. So maybe look to a guy like that. But I think on a regular basis, you're right. You know, putting him in that sidecar, that pony package and having him work out of the backfield is a net positive for sure for his game.
Yeah, and here you see Taylor Elgersma from Canada, right? This is a guy that if you guys are on the Patreon group, if you're not, scan the QR code in the upper right or go to patreon.com/PackerFan Total Access. We got an article in there on him. Just use the search bar and search for Taylor Elgersma, or you can do top 30 visit quarterback. I've told this story multiple times now. When I went to write that up, I was not looking forward to it. I'm like, I'm wasting my time. They're not going to draft this dude. There's a chance they won't even sign him. Even if they do, how good could this guy possibly be? He was playing in Canada. He didn't make it to college football, right? Man, by the end of that article, I was like, holy cow, this dude was a dominant player. I mean, he won pretty much every award under the sun in Canada. And that fifth year, man, he was not just throwing the ball, but he had something ridiculous. It was like 18 rushing touchdowns or something crazy too. So he's just a very,
big boy too, man.
Oh yeah, he's huge.
He looks like a young Ben Roethlisberger or something. He's a big frame quarterback, man. Not a guy that you're probably worried about taking shots in the pocket. You know, guy probably stand in there and throw the ball. But I think it's really interesting just getting first kind of look at him. You know, certainly looks like an NFL quarterback.
And you see Coach LaFleur working with him here, Jacob. I know it doesn't sound important, but you know, Sean Clifford is your practice squad quarterback, right? Maybe you carry two on the practice squad this year. Maybe Malik Willis gets traded before the season, right? And you get some draft capital and you let those two battle it out for the backup spot. I personally, anything less than a third-round pick, I want Malik Willis on my roster being the backup quarterback, man. What do you think about that in terms of the quarterback room?
Yeah, honestly, I was thinking the other day that if I had my way, I would actually have tried to solidify Malik Willis as a long-term backup quarterback fit, because we just right now, for how old he is, for what we saw last year, and for what we clearly saw what Matt is able to draw up and really utilize his talents specifically. And the Titans were probably watching those few games where he played thinking, what the heck is this? Like, where did this guy come from? Why did we let him go? And so I would like to see us throw him like a 3 or 4 year deal, to be honest, try to just give him a decent paycheck and just have that absolute security of knowing that going forward for the next 3-4 years or whatever it is, that if something, God forbid, happens to Jordan Love, we have a guy that could come in and almost be more of a threat in certain ways, because you have to completely shift the way that you're playing the quarterback when Malik Willis comes in.
Yeah. No, and if you're personally asking me, do I agree with that? I agree 110%, Jacob. But I always try to run things through the filter of, precedent, right? What is Goody? What is Ted Thompson? What's that whole lineage done over the years with the front office? And Cody asked a great question here in the chat. He says, how long did Flynn back up Rodgers? I think it was 3 years, and they traded him in the final year of his rookie deal. Now, back then, they didn't have the CBA where it was locked into a 4-year deal, but I'm almost positive he signed a 4-year deal as a rookie contract. So I imagine it was somewhere between 2 to 4 years that he backed up Rodgers, and then they traded him away.
Yep.
So, yeah.
2008 to 2011. His first stint.
Got it. And obviously they got a little bit of draft capital, and the Seahawks gave him the bag, and then lo and behold, they draft Russell Wilson, and they just throw Matt Flynn to the side, right? It's funny how quickly things change, because they gave him a good chunk of money for sure. So,
Sure.
Yeah. So we'll see though, man. But I definitely want Malik Willis back. And long term will be great, Jacob. It just, you get into that whole. First of all, the Packers have never done that, right? They've never given a significant contract to a backup quarterback. They just kind of run them through like cattle, right? Get them through the rookie deal, and then they move on. Get the next one, run them through the rookie deal, and move on. But what would be the number, do you think? What, average annual value? What would you be willing to pay Malik Willis to have him as your back? Because there's some teams, man, they'll pay $8 to $10 million for a backup. They'll do it. I don't know if I'm at that point, but I would be willing to pay more.
Not with the money we got to spend on Zach Tom, right? And
I was gonna say,
line,
yeah, no. If I'd be comfortable with like a 3-year, $15 million, like fully guaranteed. You know what I mean? Like,
look, Chris the Cadrian right there with you. He said $5 million on the spot. So you guys are on the same page there. I would be okay with that.
I get what you mean, Jacob. That's like a long term, right? Like near long term. We know we got something, confirmed for the next 2 to 3 years, rather than like going year to year and seeing what we're going to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we got 1 year left with him now, right? And we've already discussed the possibility of even him being traded potentially for future picks or somebody. But I think you're right. I think that's fair, right? $5 million for a backup might be slightly rich, but not really if you're getting that long semi-long-term commitment, right? You're not paying $8 to $10 to $12 million a year for a backup,
especially because it's not an unknown commodity. We've seen what happens when we give him the ball and the lights are on, and there's a lot of pressure, and just at one point it was like playoff implications, and he absolutely shined. So I like it. Damn, this dude's thick.
What's Flacco getting in Cleveland to be a backup? Probably.
I love Joe Flacco.
I mean, he's got to be north of 10 mil, right?
Yeah, he's got to be, right? I don't know, man, because he was on the street last year, right? Didn't the Colts move on from him?
I was going to say he started in Indy, and then
Bates is saying Flacco's $4 million.
Oh, really? Okay, well, there you go. Can't beat that, right?
Yeah. Well, I tell
you,
not
bad for a guy with a Super Bowl ring, right?
Exactly. When you go to Malik Willis, if you were to go to him and use that, say, as a comp and say, hey, look, here's what all the other backup quarterbacks are getting paid. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but they're going to throw that out the damn window. His agent's going to go, no, we want to hit free agency. Because there would be someone paid more than that, But you never know.
We talked about Willis wanting to possibly be a starter, right? Possibly being a guy that could be a potential starter depending on where he ends up. So maybe taking backup money and, being a journeyman backup is not the route he wants to go.
Yeah. So Bill Huber put this tweet out here. Here's some Amar Johnson. Now, if you guys don't know who Amar Johnson is, He played at South Dakota State. When the Packers signed him as a UDFA, Tucker Kraft put the tweet out. He was fired up about it, right? We had him in the 259 spot on our big board. But more importantly, when you get that low on our board, you really want to key in on the grade, because the grade is going to kind of show you where the value really is, because we got almost 600 prospects on our board, right? So his grade was 190.3. So that would suggest he was worthy of somewhere around the 200th pick, give or take, 10 or 12 spots. So the fact that they got him as a UDFA, really excited about. And as you pointed out, Jacob, this is the Quad Father 2.0 here, isn't it, man? My man got some thickness on him for sure, dude. And he did some amazing things at South Dakota State. He was the 51st highest graded running back in all of college football last year. And, some would hear that and think, okay, that's not that good. Guys, we're talking about out of like 300 or 400 schools, talking about all of college football. He ranked 51st. And it was definitely in the 80s, according to PFF. He also scored an 8+ on RAS. So,
thick.
The guy that I think he's going to give Chris Brooks a run for his money. What I would like to see happen, the fact that he went undrafted, you feel pretty confident that unless he blows up in the preseason and gets too many eyes on him, you could keep Chris Brooks on the active roster and store him on the practice squad, that type of thing. So that's Amar Johnson there, a little look at him. All right. So anything else you guys want to hit on in terms of the mini camp? Maybe anything you heard about the rookie mini camp before we dive into a little depth chart talk here?
No, I haven't heard much of anything.
Yeah. Pretty much covers it, right? Guys running around in their underwear.
What do you think about this comment here from Holmes? He says, I thought they moved off too soon from Taysom Hill. Don't repeat the same mistake with Willis.
I think that's a very fair point, Holmes. The only pushback I would give is with Taysom Hill, he's never played quarterback good with New Orleans. He's been serviceable, don't get me wrong, and he's been a weapon to just kind of throw on the backfield with certain packages. But I think his true value was on special teams and playing tight end, and he done that really good. So
we were talking about gadget player before. That might be your guy right there. Taysom Hill is a gadget player for sure. Yeah.
So when you compare Taysom Hill's situation to like Malik Willis, obviously Malik Willis is not going to line up out there in the Y. He ain't looking to crack back on a DN. But I understand what you're saying though. And Taysom Hill, they definitely did give up on him too early.
Yeah.
Because we could have utilized him for years to come. Now, the amount of money that the New Orleans Saints gave him was a little bit crazy, but they pay everybody like that down there for sure. So, all right, let's get into the depth chart. Let's start on offense. We kind of talked about quarterback room already. This came from Our Lads, the website. So I'm going to try to give you guys an idea of what the colors mean here, okay? So the purple or the pinkish color, that is obviously draft picks, all right? The yellow colors are free agency or trade acquisitions, okay? So that's how they've gotten on the roster. And then the blues there, the darker blue or kind of the turquoise blue, I should say, those are the guys that are UDFAs, okay? And again, nobody's saying this is an accurate depiction of the depth chart. This is what Our Lads has. We can cross-check it with ESPN if you guys want. But I like what Our Lads did because they've got it kind of organized where where each of these players came from, right? As Affin points out, Jacob loves Our Lads. There you go. Not those lads. Hey, fam, what's wrong with you?
They're my lads.
Yeah. Let's start with the quarterback room. Jordan Love, Malik Willis, Sean Clifford. Nothing crazy there. They don't even have Taylor Elgersman listed because he's not signed, guys. The fact that he's at the minicamp, that's just an open tryout. I think he's got one scheduled with the Cincinnati Bengals as well, if I remember correctly. So we've already covered quarterback pretty extensively so far. Let's go to running back now. This is how they see the running back room right now. Josh Jacobs, Marshawn Lloyd second, Emmanuel Wilson third, Chris Brooks fourth. Then they got Amar Johnson and Jalen White, the two UDFAs or camp invites there.
Interesting.
So, yeah, for me personally, I'm putting Emmanuel Wilson over Marshawn Lloyd, okay? But you can bet your sweet booty that Brian Gutekunst wants Marshawn Lloyd to take that number 2 spot. There's no two ways about that.
Oh, yeah.
So how do you guys feel about the running back room? Let's start with you this time, Tim. What sticks out to you there? And you can see Amar Johnson probably going to be that practice squad guy, I would imagine.
I agree. And I feel good about the running back room, just looking at it face value right here. And I can see how, like Holmes is saying, running back room loaded. I would agree, at least loaded up enough to be deadly, right? And, you got a good balance of, like I look at Emmanuel Wilson. This is what, year 3 for him? His 3rd year, I believe he's entering. And then you've got Josh Jacobs, who's, your veteran. And then Marshawn Lloyd, who got cheated out of his rookie year with injuries. And, I remember when we drafted him last year, talking about Lloyd, we had really high expectations for him, looking at his tape from USC and just seeing the build and, being excited about drafting a big boy back like that. And not getting to see him play last year was tough. So I can kind of see what they're doing here. They have him listed above my boy E. Wilson there, but I think it's Emmanuel Wilson's job to lose, I guess, for lack of a better term. And I think you're right. I think they're going to put a point of emphasis on Marshawn Lloyd to give him reps and give him a chance to go out there and be successful. And if he does, in fact, surpass Emmanuel Wilson for that number 2 spot, then so be it. It's a good problem to have. Those guys, to me, switching around based on the grind of a season or injuries or whatever, I mean, you can't go wrong. Emmanuel Wilson has proven these last 2 seasons that he's effective as a running back too, in this offense. And then having a guy like Marshawn Lloyd that might step up and take on that role. I mean, we're that much better in the running back room. And, what can you say about Chris Brooks? We can talk about him for an hour or two, the way that he stepped up last year in a couple of key moments, actually, in some of those games. So I'm with Dr. Holmes and you guys, man. I feel like the running back room is looking pretty good right now.
Pretty good. I kind of agree with both y'all. I think that obviously we know what's going on with Jacobs, but I think at the start of the year, kind of like Tim said, Emmanuel Wilson maybe deserves and maybe has a little more trust just from what he did last season to kind of slip into that role. But I think as the season progresses, and if I had to read into what I think Matt LaFleur's ideal situation would be having obviously like the battering ram big back of Jacobs and then switching it up with a little bit lighter, kind of a lightning bug style that Marshawn Lloyd has. And I watched a little more of his highlights and stuff from back in USC. The guy is electric. When he is on, he is on. And he looks like he's shot out of a cannon sometimes, but still has a really solid base to him. And then obviously, like Tim said, what we have with these 2 guys, Emmanuel Wilson and with Chris Brooks. And I just noticed just now that they're both guys that were once with San Fran that they kind of cut bait. We took their scraps and made them into absolute gems for us. So that's kind of cool. But like Bates or like somebody else said, the running back room is pretty freaking solid. It's going to take a lot for Amar Johnson or Jalen White to crack that.
Yeah. I think Bates is saying ESPN has it the other way around. They probably got Emmanuel Wilson at number 2 and Lloyd at number 3.
As a matter of fact, I think I pulled it this morning. Let me double check here real quick. Let's see. Yep, they do. There it is. So
either way, like, how do you, I mean, give me all of these guys, right? Like, who cares?
And like you said, let them battle it out in camp. And listen, if Marshawn Lloyd beats Emmanuel Wilson out in camp, you're in a damn good spot in the running back.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
And for all the talk we've said about the wide receiver battles at camp, I mean, don't forget about running back. It'll be really fun to watch those guys go at it.
Absolutely, man. All right. Let's move along to one of the more exciting positions here is obviously the Packers drafted 2 different wide receivers early there in the draft with the 1st round pick of Matthew Golden and then the 3rd round pick of Savion Williams. Here's how
his receiving is tough.
Brett. Here's how they have the receiving room stacked up right now. Okay, so they've got left wide receiver Romeo Doubs, right wide receiver is Matthew Golden, and then in the slot Jaden Reed. Now we all know you've seen it with Matthew Golden out at Texas, and when we done the chalk talk and broke down the tape, he's moving from the slot to outside, from the outside inside of the slot. Like there's a lot of situations where he'll line up in the 1 or the 2 and end up in the opposite by the time the ball is snapped. In some cases, all the way across the formation with that cheat motion that Matt LaFleur likes to run at the NFL level as well. So I kind of see Matthew Golden and Jaden Reed as interchangeable in that regard. And it's really going to cause problems for defenses to be able to key in on what Matt LaFleur wants to do there. So the second string, they have Savion Williams at left wide receiver, and kind of look at the left as the X, even though they're saying left receiver, kind of look at it as the X and the right as the Z. Okay. And that's why I was so adamant when we were going through the draft process, when we were talking about Matthew Golden, Emeka Egbuka, all these guys, like they can play Z. And it's obvious that our lads kind of agrees with that here. So Savion Williams would be your backup X. Christian Watson would be your backup Z. Of course, they've got him in the red because he's going to start the season on injured reserve, probably won't be available until November. And they got Dontavion Wicks as your backup slot. I think that's accurate. Of those three receivers, Dontavion Wicks would definitely be the one to play the slot position. All right. Next, going into the third string, they've got Malik Heath as your X, Julian Hicks as the Z, and Mecole Hardman as your slot receiver. And then,
there's your camp battle to watch right there.
Absolutely. You can kind of see it come into focus when you look at it on a depth chart like this.
Yep.
Cornelius Johnson will be your fourth string X. Tulu Griffin would be your fourth string Z, and Bo Melton would be your fourth string slot, which we talked about that. Like he is, you could tell they really wanted to work him into that F position whenever Jaden Reed was not on the field, because he's got that kind of speed and that dynamic aspect to his game. So we'll start with you this time, Jacob. Looking at this depth chart here, how do you feel about it, man? I mean, they're projecting Matthew Golden. Look, he's going to be on the field in 11 personnel right out of the gate. And the thing that sticks out to me is kind of Mecole Hardman being in that third string role. You know what I mean? Which Christian Watson being in the red, you'd like to think Dontavion Wicks would probably kick into the X or the Z, and then Mecole Hardman would just jump up 2 slot, giving you those initial 6. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. You guys know how much I love drafting wide receivers, but even just with drafting 2, it creates quite a traffic jam up in here. And even if they were to take 7, even if they were to keep 7 wide receivers, which I believe is very unlikely, even if they were to keep 6, which I think is unlikely, but I think this year they're going to have to keep 6. Christian's obviously off the board for the start of the season. I agree with maybe that. To me, it just, when I look at this grouping, there's a lot of talent at that back end. The idea of letting Malik Heath walk is troublesome. Mecole Hardman seems like he's very interested in becoming a Packer and staying in Green Bay. Bo Melton, I think that might be, like Tim said, the biggest battle right there is between Mecole Hardman and Bo Melton to be possibly, I think, would be the 6th or 7th wide receiver on this list. If you take Watson off, maybe you can sneak one more on there, but it's who would you do, Tim, if you had to take your top 6 without Watson? Who would you go with?
Without Scoot?
Yeah.
I'm going, oh boy.
That's tough, man. Tough.
I'm probably going Matt Golden, Savion Williams, Reed Wicks, and Rome. And then if we kept 7, it'd probably be Mecole Hardman or really, that's what I'm watching is Bo Melton, Mecole Hardman, Malik Heath, those 3. Is there a scenario where only one of them sticks around, And then you look at Julian Hicks. Julian Hicks was a guy who kind of popped towards the end of camp last year, if you remember. He looked really good out there. That's a guy that could kind of creep up into consideration here as well. But yeah, I guess those would be my 6, man. Just super early, right?
It is. It definitely is. And here's the other thing. Like, if I were to have to pick the top 6, knowing that Christian Watson's going on the IR, there's no way we're carrying 7. I think we would all agree with that.
Yeah, that's a long shot.
So it comes down to 2 people here for me, Mecole Hardman or Malik Heath. And I'm taking Malik Heath over Mecole Hardman, me personally. Now, which one can you pass on the practice squad? That's probably Malik Heath, because
right.
Mecole Hardman is going to get scooped.
Oh, yeah. He would get signed probably within 24 hours of hitting the practice squad.
Yeah, I would imagine he would. So with that being said, you got to look at it from that perspective. Maybe you can have them both. And here's the other thing nobody wants to talk about. I know I don't want to talk about it. Injuries happen. Every year it's like, man, that's going to be a tough decision at that position. And then we get to the final 53 and somebody goes on IR for 4 weeks, right? And it's like, okay, well, that kind of answered that question for you, and you wait and see until later. But with that being said, the other thing I want to mention, there you go. Dave said it perfect. Injuries usually dictate depth in training camp. Absolutely. The Romeo Doubs situation, the fact that Still haven't gotten confirmation from any of the insiders, but there was multiple people reporting on Twitter that he was a part of that trade package for DK Metcalf that the Packers were trying to work out. Romeo Doubs might be the guy out here. You know, I think that's a very realistic.
I was going to say that,
Yeah.
but I didn't.
So you're saying maybe McCole Hardman and then maybe not Rome?
So I would think what it would be is if they do decide to move on from Romeo, whether it's a trade or a conditional pick or whatever. Listen, I want to be clear. I don't want that to happen. But just based off of what was said, it feels like the Packers were ready to part ways with him, you know? And if you do that with Romeo Doubs, then Malik Heath and Mecole Hardman both make the roster, in my opinion. That makes sense. Right. So that's how you clear the way for that. And you just maybe you bump Dontavion Wicks into the boundary X, okay? Savion backs him up, and then you have Malik Heath jump up into maybe the Z, and Mecole Hardman obviously being that backup slot now that Wicks jumps into the X. I'm not saying this like, hey, here's how I would do it. I'm trying to base it off of what did the Packers tell us last year. Guys, you know, Dontavion Wicks got more snaps than any other receiver on our team. That tells you all you need to know, you know. And the other thing, like Coach Lynn asked a great question here. He says, how much not that one. I'm sorry. I'll come back to that one. He had right here, how much 12 personnel do you think we'll run? Coach, the fact that we drafted 2 receivers and no tight ends tell me we're going to press even more into 11 personnel. And as excited as I am about 12 personnel and what you can do with Musgrave and Kraft on the field at the same time, when you look at the explosives last year and how many times on Chalk Talk, I mean, it was like every single explosive play we broke down was out of 11 personnel. That coaching staff knows that. Matt LaFleur knows that. So they're probably going to press even more into 11 is kind of what it feels like. Not just simply based off of how they tried to get Dontavion Wicks, you know, to a fault, in my opinion, overly involved with the offense, but also the fact that they didn't draft the tight end. And I could see them kind of preparing, because you know this coach better than anybody, you know, coaching football. When you're going through training camp and practice and all that stuff and preparation, the last thing you want to do is spend a whole lot of time on 12 personnel, knowing you're one injury away from Ben Sims or John Fitzpatrick being in that starting lineup. If that becomes your focal point because you put all your time, energy, and effort, resources into making 12 personnel kind of your go-to formation, your go-to personnel, that I think the writing's on the wall that we're going to probably press into 11 personnel. I'm not saying we're going to run it more than we did last year. And if this number is correct from our lads, 71% of the snaps was out of 11 personnel, which is 3 wide receiver sets. Just kind of feels like that's the direction we're going in. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of how I see that. Let's wrap up with these questions here, and then we'll get into the tight end position a little bit more. There's Coach Lynn says, how much will Musgrave cut into slot reps when we want a power slot? That's a great question too. They can definitely press into that. They can lean into that, flex him out, put the Y, if you want to call him the Y, or the U in the number 2 spot and use him as an extra blocker there, or maybe a mismatch if they want to try to throw a safety on him. You know, he should be much larger than the safeties that would cover him and much faster than the backers that would cover him for sure.
Yeah, just real quick. I not that obviously Coach knows 10 times more about football than I know, obviously, but just I've seen a lot of people saying stuff about like how they want to put Musgrave in the slot. But if you watch a lot of the stuff last year, like, dude, Tucker Kraft, they put him in a lot of different areas. And when he got the ball, that guy moves really, really well. I forgot how many touchdowns he had and how much of it was yak. I mean, stiff arming people, jumping over him, diving for the end zone, making, contested catches, diving catches. Like, he's a really good tight end, and I feel like that Matt might not feel as reluctant as throwing that guy a little more, kind of, I don't want to say gadgety stuff, but stuff where they maybe would put him in a slot. Like, he's really good, man.
Just remember the golden rule with Tupac LaFleur.
No block, no rock.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And I think about that about Matthew Golden, boys. I do. And I know the scouting report said he's willing to block and this and that, but I kind of look up sometimes and go, I'm not saying they're going to keep him off the field because of it, but he definitely ain't Malik Heath walking somebody to the water.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think Malik Heath, the closer we get to training camp, the more I think Malik Heath's going to be on this 53, because
I love it. I love that, Clayton.
Me
I mean,
too.
the metrics we broke into the other day, I didn't come into last week thinking that, but when you looked at everything on NFL Pro, he led receivers in just about every, category other than, like yards and a bunch of opportunities. You know what I'm saying? Like it was just one after another. Like, damn, look at Malik Heath here, EPA per target, and this and that. It's like he really maximizes opportunities. And we'll wrap it up with this. Coach Lynn says Bo Melton's going to have a hard time making this roster. I could not agree more, Coach. He seems like the guy that's going to be the odd man out here. Now, put him on the practice squad, right? That sounds great. I would not be surprised if somebody picks him up off the practice squad. And I can't remember if he was initially put on the practice squad last year or not, but I think Bo Melton would be the odd man out right now, even with the Christian Watson injury. It kind of sealed his fate with the Savion Williams draft pick. So
the thing with Bo is, you remember he dealt with nagging injuries his rookie year, if memory serves me correct. So he was a guy who kind of had to work back and then kind of made a name for himself these last 2 years in Green Bay. So, yeah, man, it's going to be tough, man. It's crazy to say because you look at, like, from the bottom to the top, Bo Melton's probably that first name that comes in your head of a guy that, like, may or may not be on this team,
Right. And the coaches love him. The fans love him. He's done everything right. He's a team player. He's willing to block. He's got a faster 40 time than Christian Watson, Deadfish says could trade a wide receiver before the cut down and keep Bo. That's a great point.
That's a great point. Yeah.
And there's a little bit of precedent for that. I want to say we trade Samori Toure or some. I want to say we traded a couple of receivers over the last 5 to 6 years, right? So there's a little bit of precedent.
I hate to say it because the first name that comes to mind is Malik Heath. If we're talking about doing that.
And for me, Tim, it's Romeo Doubs.
That's true.
Both of those I don't like trading, but
right,
that's the reality of the situation. That Romeo Doubs going into the last year of his deal, and it's pretty obvious they don't plan on re-signing him. So it's going to be interesting to say the least. But
you're right. I mean, if they made a deal for Rome, that would certainly make a lot of these decisions a little bit easier, right?
Right, definitely. All right, guys, that's going to do it for hour one. For those of you listening on the pod, we will see you on the other side for hour two, where we're going to talk tight ends and offensive line. We appreciate y'all.